So first of all, we really would like to thank you all for being here today. It's really good to talk to you and see that you are really interested in our work. I'm also really want to thank you, everybody in the Green Web Foundation and in the fellowship, all my fellow companions, Catherine, Michelle, Chris, everybody. It was really a great journey to share with you here, like all the weekly meetings, all the other activities. They really helped me through the fellowship. So I came up with this title, Starlink, the Trans-Amazonia Highway 2.0, especially because the Trans-Amazonia Highway was a really uh, bloody thirst project in the Amazon in the 70s and brought a lot of destruction and death and really impacted the way that we see Amazon as it is today. So I will explore that in my final blog post that will come up in the next week. So be aware of that. Just making some public. So when I started, my first goals was to, when I applied for the fellowship, my first goals was to investigate. And these three main points. First of all, the efforts of civil society to bring the internet to remote communities in the Amazon. The other one was about the use of the internet by illegal miners in the Amazon. And the third was like the strategic importance of access to 5G technology for the Brazilian agribusiness. These were my first idea, but when I started the fellowship and when I started the investigation, other things came up, and I touch upon these points during my investigation, but other things pop up. So the goals change a bit, especially because when I start to talk to government officials, climate activists, and Amazon remote communities, the first thing that happened was that they wasn't aware about the telecommunications policies or even the data that we had on connectivity in their own region. So I had this first meeting with the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs in Brazil, and the public official said, hey, this is really important and this is really interesting, but we don't know anything at all about these issues right now. So could you gather some data for us and show us how big and how deep is the problem? So this was the main first thing that I did starting the fellowship. The other one was to gathering the insights with the community members related to how they were seeing the arrival of Starlink in their communities. And at first, I thought that was going to be just bad things related to Starlink, but I really found the opposite. They are loving Starlink in their communities. So this was a really important finding. And the third of that is to produce some policy recommendations for the government, especially because we have a new government in place after the Bolsonaro administration, which is more open to talk and more open to listen. So I'm starting to produce some policy recommendation, not only regarding connectivity policies, but also related to freedom of expression, climate disinformation. So I think this is going to be a really huge final thing that my fellowship is going to provide. And the fellowship was also a great part. It was a great opportunity to talk to this government official related to these issues. So I had the time and also the money to talk to them. So the fellowship was really important for in this matter. So what I did in my fellowship was just what is in the title: reading, listening, and warning. I think this summarized what I'm really trying to do during these last 6 months. And what are the key findings? The main three key findings was these ones. The first of all, when I talked that I wanted to see how was the civil society efforts to connect the Amazon, I wasn't aware that the civil society effort was being funded by private companies and some really shady companies like mining companies as Hydro and Vale. some banks as Santander and Itaú, which are the huge banks in Brazil, JBS, which is cattle and agribusiness and meat producer here in Brazil. And they are really funding the Starlinks for indigenous, riverine, and quilombola communities here in Brazil. They are the ones that are putting the money on that. It's not the government, and not only the civil society. And the other finding was that the antennas are really being very well received by the community, especially because they bring faster and more resilient connectivity. As I mentioned in my blog post, people now have a better access to educational services, health services, and they are not spending hours and hours traveling to talk to other communities. They just have like the access to talk to them. And this was like another important key finding for myself and for the research. And the other key finding is that it's not like super new, is because we have reached this situation because the government has once again, like for decades, absent on the Amazon. And they decided to prioritize other regions and sector. And this is still the case even after the arrival of Starlink. This is a main thing on government policy in the Amazon, is the absence of proactive and pro-life policies. So that's it. All that glitters is not gold. So even if the Starlink arrival is really being well received, I'm already seeing some backlashes. But just to show you who are the main funders of this, here you can see, for instance, the main banks in Brazil, and as I mentioned, Santander, the main minings, also companies as Vale and Hydro, and we also have other civil society organizations, but these are the ones that are putting money on the Starlink antennas here in Brazil, most of them. But not only them, there are other private companies and private initiatives that are putting some money on Starlink antennas. And for instance, there is in the Yanomami community, which is facing a huge problem in Brazil right now. This is a post from their Instagram account saying that we express our deepest gratitude to Nia Tero and Earth Bezos for the commitment to empowering indigenous communities and their vision of a more just and equitable world. So and we are seeing this kind of image daily and weekly here in the Amazon. So the communities are receiving the Starlink antennas. They are putting on their social media, and they are also thanking folks as Bezos, which is not the best person to deal with. And what were the impact and change, not only by myself, but in the communities and the research? I think the main one is being humble. I think I'm a digital rights activist. I wasn't so involved in climate justice or even engaging with indigenous communities or quilombola communities. And I think one of the main things that I not only that I learned is that I will take for like my next steps is to be humble. Humble in a sense to be more soft, delicate, and nuanced on the critical discourse, because as I was talking, when I started this fellowship, I think that I was going to be all bad things about Starlink, and it wasn't that. And also, I think it's really important to go to the territories to validate my hypothesis on what I was thinking about. So one of the other great things that the fellowship provided me was this kind of funding to do a field trip. So I went there, I talked to some community leaders, and this was really important. And this takes back to the first point of what is the impact that the project had on the communities. I think it was really important to bring and showing the possible negative impacts of connectivity via Starlink. Because
Lua, you're on time already.
okay, sorry for that. I'm just gonna wrap up. So what's next? Where I'm planning to go from here? Spread the word. I already written some blog posts. I have some data. I'm producing an infographic. So I think it's important to spread the word and not like putting the blog post that on the website. I'm talking to people, sending to them, translating. Other things that I really want to do is to do some partnership with some underfunded local organization that I met when I went to the Amazon a few weeks ago. I'm also eager to see how it's going to be the impact of local elections in this year, in the second semester. And also, I really want to follow the money. So to see what are the real interests from the mining and agribusiness companies funding Starlink. It's something greenwashing or ESG policy. It's something related to destruction of identity of these communities. I don't know, but I really wanted to deep dive on that. And that's it. Thank you, and sorry for the time.